seems to one degree or the other. But on a deeper level, we are conditioned to be able to get things our way. And if for some reason we don't like the way the government, for instance, is going, we can vote and bring in a different way of doing it. If there is a law on the books that we don't want to live with, there's a legal way to change the law. So what happens over the years, because so many things are done that way, we get conditioned to expect God also to function that way, and the church also. If I don't like what's going on, I don't like the way it's being done, well, we should find some way to change it. You know, in D.C. they have something called lobbyists. People who specialize in trying to hound people or browbeat people or pay people to change things their way. Some congregations have lobbyists in them as well, right? They'll lobby against the preacher. They'll either threaten something or offer something if some changes can be made. You think it doesn't affect us? I'll tell you about a tragedy that happened in my life just yesterday. I pulled up to Sonic right after 2 o'clock because my wife is addicted to that, Dr. Pepper. So I pulled up there to get her a Route 44 drink. And I'll have you know, I had to wait for at least 10, 12, 14 seconds. That was ridiculous, right? We're so used to pulling up there. And have you ever had the real bad experience of saying, would you mind pulling forward so we can bring you're going to inconvenience me, make me pull up and wait on my food? I can't just sit here and get it. Those are small examples, brethren. But we can get very, very used to that idea. And when it comes to religion, sometimes we play that game with God. Okay, God, you said it that way, but what about this? You ever really analyze that phrase, yes, but? Yes, but means no, doesn't it? Yes, the Bible says that, but this is why I don't think I have to do it quite that way. Isn't that what we wind up doing? And sometimes we just butt it to death. We just wind up by qualification and changing things. We move a long way from what God actually said. I want us this afternoon to spend some time not guessing, but looking specifically at some examples, and we won't get to all the ones in the book, but some examples where people played this game, let's make a deal. Here's another truism. I can see flaws in you very, very easy compared to seeing them in myself. Is that true? I have no trouble telling you how to be a better spouse. I have no trouble telling you how to be a better parent. Isn't that how it works? But when it comes to ourselves, sometimes it's very, very hard to see. That's why I chose this format. We're going to look at some people, and as you look at what they did, you will shake your head, you dummy. And I will ask you to get you a mirror out and look at yourself, because you've been a dummy too on some of these very same things. If I'm wrong here, you tell me afterwards. Let's begin by looking at a couple of examples. This idea, get this principle about thinking correctly. Isaiah 55, 8, 9. Now, brethren, God tells us this. I need to know this. You need to know this. God says, behold, my ways are not as your ways, and my thoughts are not as your thoughts. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts, which tells me this flat out. I will never completely understand why things are as they are. Right. My job is to grasp the things I can grasp and to trust God on the things I cannot. I mean, brethren, this even affects some pretty major doctrines. I don't know necessarily exactly why Jesus Christ had to die on the cross to save us from our sins. Do you? I know He did. I know it's a historical fact. I know Leviticus 17 says that when sin's committed, that blood must be shed. But as a man, I don't know why. I don't see the connection. But I don't have to. I see the one who does see the connection. I can trust what God said about the process. The same is true when it comes to the plan of salvation. I don't know why God did it the way He did it, but He did. And He did not need my advice or my approval on the topic. You think about how arrogant we become in that regard. I'm talking about any of us that find ourselves arguing with God. Well, God, I don't see. No joke, you don't see. You're a little dinky created person with a few decades on this earth. You don't know everything God knows? That's a real stomper, isn't it? A real puzzle. He's infinite in knowledge. He knows everything that can be known. My obligation is to admit that. That's the problem. Admitting there's someone smarter than me in this world. See, I've never had an opinion of my own that I've disagreed with. How about you? When it comes to God, if God says something, that's truth. I've got to bring my way of thinking in line with that. Let's start right in the beginning. Good place to start. On this consideration of this, let's make a deal, or changing, not being satisfied with what God had set forth. Brethren, think about this. They were in paradise. I don't mean kind of a good place. I mean they were there. As good as existence in the flesh could be, they had it. But Eve wasn't satisfied. Devil comes along, begins to plant those seeds of doubt. Has the Lord said you can't eat all these trees? By the way, he's also seductive in the way he approaches us. He makes it sound like God doesn't want you to eat any of this stuff, does he? You see how he worded that? So God didn't say you can eat all these trees, did he? That's not exactly true. God said you can eat of all of them except that one. What is it about us that demands that one too? See? He appeals to the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, the pride of life. A lot of folks want to make a deal on the carnal aspects of life. That's passage of 1 John 2, 15 through 17. Love not the world. That's not saying don't enjoy life. I'm having a good time. I wouldn't have missed being here, by the way, for the world. When you call me, my answer is always yes. If it's possible, I'll go. I love being reunited with folks that I've known in other places, that I maybe have known even here in times gone by. But he's saying here, love the world less than God. I cannot put the things of the world ahead of God. You can't put the fleshly things. We usually think of, carnal aspects there. Certainly lust of the eye, lust of the flesh, pride of life. Lust of the flesh goes along with that. Lust of the eye. How much, what kind of car do you drive? What kind of car do you want? Years ago, Reba McEntire had that song. She's driving a brand new Corvette and she rear-ended a truck, right? What was she doing? Said she's rubbernecking a Rolls Royce going the other way, right? We're that way sometimes. They're in paradise. And they could not see what they had. How many men, how many women have cheated on their spouses? The old idea the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Didn't appreciate what they had until it was gone. That goes, how many jobs? You ever got kind of feeling sorry for yourself? Had your old lip pushed out? They don't appreciate me around here. I'm not getting paid enough for what I do, blah, 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 blah. You ever had that conversation? Weekly, right? Whatever, sometimes. So you work yourself up, you quit. And the best thing you can find is nowhere close to that one. Sometimes, you see, we get deceived on things, don't we? Heard a story one time about this man, big-time New York businessman. He was out in Cancun, and he's walking the beach one morning on his trip, and he saw this fella, middle-aged guy, sitting there. He had a hammock under a tree, and he was cooking a fish. And he walked by, and there's a big old fish. He said, man, that's a good fish. He said, yeah, I catch one every morning. You catch fish like that all the time? Oh, yeah, I catch one every day. He said, man, if you have that kind of skill set, you ought to start catching 4 or 5 fish a day, and you can eat one and sell the other 3 or 4 at the market. And the guy said, why? He said, well, then you'd have enough money, you could hire you some other guys, and several of y'all could go out there in different boats, and y'all could catch a bunch of these fish and sell them and make a lot of money. He said, well, then what? He said, well, then you could get you some automated ships, some bigger ships, and go out and catch a lot of fish. He says, then what? He said, well, you could get you a cannery, and you could build this cannery and have a lot of employees, and y'all could, sell this stuff back in America and make millions. He said, then what? He said, then you could retire on a beach in Cancun. Now you laugh and giggle. I suspect many of us live our lives that way. You're a little bitty kid on a tricycle. I can't wait till I can ride that bicycle. Get that bicycle. I can't wait till I'm a teenager and can drive. Can't wait till I get in high school. Oh, I can't wait till I get to college. Can't wait till I get out of college and get married. Can't wait till I have my kids. Can't wait till the kids are gone and me and mama can travel and have some money. Can't wait to retire. You have people who spend their entire life not living one day in any of it. Always looking for something else. And you get old and bent and decrepit and wish you were back on that tricycle with mama. Don't let the devil get our focus shifted to things that ultimately will destroy us. He's not on the outline. It's kind of like Achan. Why did Achan need gold and Babylonian clothes for? You ever thought this? I mean, God had all the 10 plagues, and they crossed the Red Sea, food falling from heaven. They've got manna, they've got quail, they're going somewhere, the land of promise of milk and honey. You're going to get a house you didn't build, a vineyard you didn't plant. You're going to have land fenced and everything's there. It's all waiting for you. Why did he need money? He didn't need any money. He needed trust in God. Well, I got to work on Sunday. I can't pay my bills. Is that true? Or do you not trust God to help you live your life? If you can't make a living and serve God, then you need to change jobs. You know, sometimes people say, well, the high cost of living. Is it the high cost of living or the cost of high living that gets us in trouble? I mean, you know what I'm talking about? Sometimes our choices put us in situations. That's not really our topic this morning, but it flows along with this somewhat. John chapter 8, Christ gives us some insight. Now, brethren, this would apply to any of these points. Get this point if you get nothing else. John 8, that great exchange between Christ and the Pharisees there, and he's beginning to call them the sons of their father, and they get all mad. We be not born of fornication. We're sons of Abraham. He says, no. You know, Abraham saw my day and rejoiced in it. No, we be the sons of Abraham. We're not born of fornication. He says, no, you are of your father the devil, and the works of your father you will do. He was a liar and a murderer from the beginning. John 8:44 and following. Now get this point. Satan is a liar. Every temptation he sets before you is false advertisement. You ever pondered this? You ever gone into a restroom, let's say a public restroom, make this nice and gross. You go into a truck stop or you go into a gas station, and there's the toilet, and it's full of nasty, dirty water. Got the picture? Drop a sponge in that water. Now pick that sponge up and squeeze it. What comes out? Dirty toilet water. When you squeeze the devil, all that comes out is toilet water. He doesn't have anything good to give us. In fact, in the book of James, we're taught, James 1 and verse 17, every good gift and every perfect gift cometh down from the Father of lights from above. He can't give you anything good. He can't give you peace. He can't give you joy. He can't give you contentment. He can't give you happiness. He can't give you existence with no guilt and no shame. He doesn't have it to give. You know, Matthew 4, he lied through his teeth to Jesus. Amen. I'll give you those kingdoms. No, you cannot. I believe Jesus Christ read Daniel chapter 4. I think he knew what Nebuchadnezzar knew. There is a God in heaven who gives the kingdoms of men to whomsoever he sees fit. It wasn't the devil's to give. He cannot give you what he promises you. And you know that up here if you think about it. But those lusts, that stinking thinking sets in. And we convince ourselves, we allow ourselves to be deceived. Paul would later describe him as an angel of light, and his ministers as ministers of righteousness. You ever watch those holler for a dollar preachers on TV? You know, they got the big hair and the big smile. And, oh, God loves you, and I do too. Give everybody a hug. And that scroll is going the whole time. Send me your money. Send me your money. Send me your money. You ever heard? Oh, Kenneth Copeland. You need to plant a seed of anointing. That's Pentecostal code talk. Give me some money. I'm old. Here comes my age. Y'all remember whenever Oral Roberts was on TV? You know, oh, if I don't get $15 million by the end of the year, God's going to take me home. People would send him money. If you'll just send me $20, God will bless you fivefold. You're going to get $100 back. Turn our brains on. If that's how that works, he wouldn't want your $20. He'd want your address. So he can send you the $20 and God would give his ministry the $100. Is that not right? Yeah. But we allow the devil, you see, to get in there and start messing with our minds. Yeah, I can kind of see what he's saying. I can kind of see how that could be good. Eve followed him when she did, of course. He was a liar. The truth was not in him. He brought about nothing but problems with them. Don't just run through the Bible when you read it. Personalize it. Do you think as she stood at the grave of her son Abel, she wasn't overshadowed with her guilt? Cain killed Abel. Eve killed Abel too, brethren. And so did Adam. They set the circumstances in order, that allowed him to do what he did. Now think about that. They played, let's make a deal with God, and they lost heaven. Joshua 24 and verse 15, choose ye this day. You know, as I said earlier, it's very, very easy for me to preach to you. We need to preach to ourselves. Best sermons I ever write, I do looking in the mirror. I figure I'm pretty much average guy. If I need some of this, somebody else does too. Choose ye this day whom ye shall serve. Who do you serve? Well, Jesus, okay, stop, think. Really? Do we rise and live and retire every day with him in our thoughts? Does he curb my tongue when I want to say something I shouldn't say? Does he get my lazy tail out of the couch and off the lazy boy? Out of the lazy boy, off the couch, I guess. And go ahead and go help someone who's in need of something. Or you ever play this game? You have a bulletin, I guess, every Sunday. You probably have a prayer list on there. I ought to give so-and-so a call. I ought to send so-and-so a card. I ought to take some food by to so-and-so. But we never do. You ever done that? I've done it. I'm not embarrassed to say it. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say it, but it's true. But brethren, what is the practical difference in an atheist who doesn't believe in God at all and doesn't lift his finger to help his fellow man, and a so-called Christian who says they believe in God, believe in the Bible, love the church, love their fellow man, want to serve Jesus, sing songs like "Here Am I, Send Me," but then do nothing on a regular basis? There's no practical difference. I've got to choose like Joshua did. I mentioned Cain and Abel, that's our next example. You know, they go worship God. Several things can be said here. Worship. You can't just give God any old thing you want to. That's back to our Americanism, I guess. I think a lot of people's attitude is, well, God ought to be satisfied I showed up. If that's your attitude, just stay at the house. You're going to lose your soul anyway. Cain and Abel go before God. The very first worship assembly we're presented with, one does it God's way, and one makes a deal. Let's make a deal, God. I don't know exactly what the instructions were. I know they had them. I know Hebrews 11 verse 4 says, Abel being dead yet speaketh, that he worshiped God according to faith. Romans 10 verse 17, faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. That tells me that God gave them instructions on how to worship him properly. One of the brothers did it, one of them did not. God received the one who did. He rejected the worship of the other one. Now watch how this parallels our lives. The man who ignored God's word, did what he wanted to without God's instruction or approval, then gets mad both at God and his fellow man. Some reason his brother doing the right thing made him upset. I have never for the life of me understood why that emotion is there. But it is. That there are a lot of people that whenever you call them on what they've done, they'll get angry. Forget a lot of people. Think about yourself. Did you ever do something you shouldn't have done? Guilty. You think not? Romans 3 and verse 10. There's none righteous, no, not one. We've all sinned at some point in time. So your mama got on you, or your daddy got on you, or your school teacher got on you. There's only two ways you can react there. One, a wise way, is to receive the instruction. Fix what's wrong. The foolish way is to persist bullheadedly in being wrong. You ever heard things like this? I don't care what you say. I'll never believe it. By the way, that's a false statement. Because about 1 second after their death, they're going to believe all of it. They're going to believe every word of it. You go read Luke 16. And that's not said in any way to bring joy to us, but it's a matter of finalization. The facts are the facts. In Matthew 15, 7 through 9, Christ addressed this attitude. He said, you hypocrites. These are religious people. Listen, these are the kind of people that you and I work with. They're at our offices, they're at school, they're at wherever it is that you go. You ever sit there and they just start talking? You know, we just had, in the world's view, this, Easter last week. Oh, we had this beautiful guitar. They just get all worked up and tell you about all the stuff they did. You got to try to find some way to get through that, talking to them. But Christ there says, you hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy about you, saying, this generation draws nigh unto me with their mouth. They honor with their lips, but their heart is far from me. How do you know that, Jesus? Because in vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrine the commandments of men. Just spitting out their teaching as if God gave it. A man's say so is not the same as God's say so. Man's think so is not the same as God's say so. Matthew 5, when we come to worship, here at the services, we have to do it according to God's will. We can't just make things up. I saw a guy one time, no joke, his stick was called Jumping for Jesus. He was a gymnastics guy, and he'd get this ladder, and he'd climb up that ladder and try to balance it, and the kids, ooh and ah, and I'm over there throwing up the corner. I mean, it's got nothing to do with the gospel. It's entertaining. You ever see those muscle guys come through town, the Pyre team? These 285-pound ripped up Greek gods, and they'll take a horseshoe. You want to impress me? Bring up one that's about 102 pounds. Give him one of the big things. It ain't the Holy Spirit doing nothing. And I missed the chapter on horseshoe straightening evangelism. Right? You got all kinds of things. It's a gimmick. It's a show. It's the devil doing what he does. You ever watch mama birds feed baby birds? She flies up, their little mouths, their eyes are blind. Mouths are open, just put it in. Aww. One of my favorite pictures, a lot of my studies are in ancient history, but I like some of the Middle Age art and the medieval art. And there's one where there's this Pope, and there's a crowd of people down there, and they're looking up the stage, and the mouths are wide open. And he has a shovel, and he's shoveling horse apples, to be polite, at them. And you know what? That artist was hitting it right on the head. Acts 17, verse 11, we are to search the scriptures, make sure what is taught us is the truth. John 8:32, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. You're not going to be saved because of the charisma of our preachers. You're not going to be saved because of the tradition of our religious group. We're going to be saved through the truth, and only the truth. Now back to my idea of to go about your teacher. You go to the doctor. He runs the test. He comes back and says, I'm sorry, you've got this disease. You know what you don't usually do? I guess it can happen. You ever slap the preacher? I mean, you're a doctor. What? Shut up. I don't want to hear that. You turn in your math paper. You get it back. Here's how mine used to look. It looked like your teacher bled all over the thing, right? So, man, that problem was wrong. You need to work on that. You don't slap your teacher. You don't slap the doctor when he shows you the physical ailment that's in your body. You don't slap the professor or the teacher when they show you the mistake in your education. Why do we sometimes then want to slap the preacher or the elders or the church when they stand up for what is right, and we find ourselves at cross purposes with that, but it's somehow their fault pointing it out? It's not the doctor's fault you've got cancer. And it's not the English teacher's fault that you can't put two words together with proper English syntax. And it's not the preacher or the elders or the church or the Christians that are involved in teaching you's fault if you're living your life in sin. That responsibility rests solely upon your shoulders. And you'll get an account for it one of these days. Let's make a deal. Galatians 4 and verse 6, Paul asked the question, have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Any of y'all with gray hair out there? You know what the answer is on that, don't you, for a lot of people? Yes, you have. But brethren, faithful Christians cannot, with a smile on their face, sit back and let folks go to hell and not say something. Just like a good doctor can't let you leave the room with a disease that needs treatment, and a good teacher cannot let you leave the classroom without trying to find a way to get you some tutorial help or something to show you better how to be educated. A good Christian cannot let you live in sin, lost and not knowing it, and not try to somehow bring it to your attention. I want to drop down to the example on Pharaoh, Exodus 7. In that example, think about Pharaoh for a second, and when you actually analyze him, I'm not sure that any king ever, including the Jewish kings, ever had more access to God than Pharaoh. He sent him a wonderful prophet, the greatest of the Old Testament people that I see, at least from my way of speaking, besides maybe King David. Of course, Jesus says John the Immerser, but Moses was in the top three. He's stout. Moses is Pharaoh's preacher. And then God works 2 minor miracles, put that in quotes, and then comes back and works 10 massive miracles through the plagues. The man had 10 specific times where God altered heaven and earth and set aside natural law and worked miracles for his benefit. All answering the first question he asked Moses. Remember what it was? Who is the Lord that I should serve him? Did you also notice that whenever God sent Moses, he didn't have Moses crawl in on his knees and say, hey, mighty Pharaoh, would you please give us permission to go? He said, the great I am tells you, commands you, let my people go. Don't forget who's God and who's not. Don't forget who's the creator and who's the creature. Romans chapter 1 has a long discussion on that. But during that exchange, during those plagues, Pharaoh began to try to make deals. All right, just y'all go, but leave the women and the kids. Well, that didn't work out. Okay, y'all all go, but just leave the animals. Recall what Moses said in response to that one. Not a hoof shall be left behind. There's an entire half chapter committed to this thought in Corinthians, dealing with what fellowship does Christ have with the law? What fellowship does light have with darkness? Isaiah 5 and verse 20. Woe unto them who call good evil and evil good, who put light for darkness and darkness for light, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Okay, Brother Michael, we'll go along with that, but how about you give us this one? I'm not giving you nothing. We're going to stand exactly where Christ stood. Brethren, if we deviate one step away from God, the only other alternative is take a step toward the devil. Amen. Read Psalm chapter 1 sometime. Preach on the first 3 verses quite a bit. The blessed man. Read on the unblessed or the non-blessed man, verses 4 through 6. Those blessings are conditional. If I stand where Christ stood, if I say what Christ said, if we preach what they preached then, today, won't we be today what they were then? And brethren, if we preach a message differently or different from what they taught, then we are not today what they were then. You can't change it. You've got to stand for what they stood for. James 3 and verse 17 talks about, to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him that sin. When I see a man or a woman who is not doing what's right, I need to fix it. By the way, when I sit to myself, I ought to fix it as well. The next one there, how about the Jews at the Jordan River? This is another one. It just makes you want to scratch your head. God had delivered them from Egypt. All those great works, they get to the river and they're afraid. What are we afraid of? When I was a younger person, I didn't understand Revelation 21 and verse 8. I could sing the little limerick, the little song. Revelation 21:8. And the kids in here, 21:8. What's say next? Liars go to hell, burn, 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 right? Am I the only one who knows that? All right, well, West of 35, that's a song that we sing to little kids. But as a kid, I could understand why a fornicator, an adulterer, a murderer, why those folks go to hell, but why liars? It actually says, and all liars shall have their place in the lake of fire that burns forever and ever. It gives more attention to lying than all the rest of them. Because if you are dishonest with yourself, you'll never be right before God. 2 Corinthians 7 verse 10, we don't deal with it very much. But godly sorrow works repentance. I've got to see myself as I am, not as I wish I were. We do a real good job of hiding who we are. Everybody's put on fancy, pretty clothes today, and you fixed your hair, and you got your false face on and all that stuff. And we know how to speak in polite company, and we have tact, and we this and we that. Sometimes it's just you at the house. You think I'm kidding about this mirror thing? I'm not. You go in your bathroom, and you turn on that light, and you sit there a minute, you sit there 30 minutes, and you take a good, hard look into the windows of the soul. You look at yourself as you are. What is my attitude? What is my spirit? Am I harsh? Am I critical? Am I never pleased with anybody ever? Some folks are so negative and so, folks like that? I don't care what you do, it's never good enough. They always did it better, or somebody else did it better, or who cares, anybody can do that. They always just put down everybody all the time. A work in the church comes up, yeah, we tried that one time, didn't work very good at all. Well, we only had so many show up. Well, it's always negative. Brethren, that's not a godly attitude. In fact, enthusiasm, if you break the word down, means God in us. We should be thankful, hardworking. I will stand here and argue with you to the rest of this day. well, till 4 o'clock, that Stephen was just as successful as a preacher as was Peter. Because he preached the truth. Now Isaiah says, my word does not return unto me void. How are we really? But some folks are so negative they can brighten the whole room just by leaving the room. Don't be that kind of person. If you find yourself, listen, we all have tendencies, right? We do. Some good and some bad. You don't have to worry about the good ones too much, but worry about those bad ones, okay? They'll get you lean. Even how you preach. You really begin to analyze preachers, and when you try to teach and train in this area, it's a problem. I've got to make sure my personality is not driving the train here. Are we teaching the truth, you see? Are we avoiding certain subjects because they're hard to preach with a certain personality type? Whatever. King Saul, chapter 19 of 1 Samuel. Actually, first go back up to Eli and his sons. I'm not going to do Moses. Other than just say this, I will say this about Moses and the one there in Numbers 20. Let's make a deal. God says, Moses, speak to the rock. What did Moses do? Well, he went to the rock. He went to the right rock. He was in the right area. He went there to get water. He almost did what God said to, but he hit it with a stick instead of speaking to it, right? This is another lesson that's really tough when you get really down to this. This man gave 40 years. I'm talking about 40 hard years of leading a stiff-necked and rebellious people. And God does not let him go in to the promised land. And he even tells them, you know why he said that? Because you did not glorify me. He got mad. You know, we're taught in the book of Ephesians to be angry and sin not. He was frustrated. He was put out, and I would say rightly so. They're griping about water. I'd be screaming at these guys. I'd be like, you idiots, do you really think he brought you all the way out here, worked all those miracles to watch you die in the desert? How dumb can you be? That's no doubt what he was feeling. We need water. You want some water? Bam! There's your water. You ever done that? Very few. In fact, James tells us, be careful about that anger. Because the wrath of man rarely works the wisdom of God. Have you ever made any just really brilliant comments when you were really upset? Probably not. Have you ever made a bunch of comments that you wish you could back up? and take back. I got a little exercise I tell kids back home. The mamas don't like it. When it comes to running your mouth, though, you get home this weekend, get you a big old tube of toothpaste, the bigger the better, kids, and just squeeze it all out on the counter in the bathroom. Then take your finger and you put it all back inside that tube. You can't do it. You can't take those words back either. Part of Christian maturity is learning to control your emotions. A lot of this is about control and self-discipline. The word disciple has the idea of discipline. You won't be able to curb your tongue unless you're spending time in God's Word to see how did Christ respond. I try back home to encourage them. Try to read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I like to read one of those every week, at least one of them. Not just to learn what he said, but to see how he handled himself. What do you do as it pops off? You know why you get mad when somebody comes back at you on religious topics sometimes? It's pride. Listen, I know I'm a good preacher. I just told you what the truth is there. You shouldn't be getting mad. There's something wrong with you. I know I didn't mess up. Remember Samuel? When the people wanted a king? And he was upset. He said, Samuel, they've not rejected you. They've rejected me. If your attitude is right and you preach the truth, my concern, see, think about this. We are a seed sower, not a seed germinator. Germination between God and the heart of the man that heard it. We plant the seed. We hope other people come along, other Christians, other teachers, and they add more knowledge. They water, and maybe you're a good example. You know, they work with you. Maybe I preach to someone makes them mad as a snake. Mad as a hornet, whatever gets mad over here. And they go to work, but they see you, something bad happens, but you respond in a way that only a Christian would. You handle it properly. There's a cumulative effect, brethren. Remember the prophet? Here a little, there a little, line upon line. I'm not the most patient person. That's one of my weaknesses, especially with people who I think should know better. But I'm working on that. You know, I'm the guy who turns around to his kids and says, y'all need to get quiet and grow up now, right? That's going to work on a 2-year-old. But Christ told the apostles once, I have many other things to tell you, but I can't, because you are not able to bear them yet. There is a maturation process that goes along there. King Saul started out so good. What a neat fella. You know, God comes after him. He's so humble, he doesn't want to be king. God makes him king anyway. And when he's young, God even tells him, again, brother, this comes up a lot. When you were little in your own sight, man, what a man you were, Saul. You were awesome. But as he got older, and as he had success, he became very jealous. He became very embittered. He became very fearful of what he was going to lose. Twice he sinned specifically against God. Once when he offered the sacrifice that Samuel was supposed to offer. The other time whenever he didn't kill Agag and all the livestock he was supposed to. Tried to make a deal. In fact, both those scenarios, Samuel shows up and he says, well, I waited. It was the day appointed. 7 days you wait. On the seventh day, he had already got so impatient, he'd made the sacrifice himself. And then tried to say, I waited, you didn't show up. And my army was leaving. He did not need an army to win the war. All he needed was God. We forget that in church sometimes. I don't know what's going on. Our numbers are slipping. Who cares? Does the Bible not teach that God is able to save with many or with few? Is that not true? It's not the number of us. It's the quality of us that counts. Christ didn't call 5,000 apostles. He called 12, and one of them was the devil. Right? Judas fell away early. Brethren, we don't need to worry about such things, because if you begin to worry about those kind of things, then this idea comes up. What can we do to draw more people? You know, more pizza, less Prince of Peace. More bowling, less Bible. Shorter sermons. You know, that's got to be what it is. Go to football games. The coldest game I ever played, it probably was a different field, but here in Mabank, we played in a sleet storm one night. Y'all whooped us bad. But anyway, people go to football games. When the season starts, you get just cooked like a piece of bacon. I'm the play-by-play guy back home. And man, when you start, it is hot when we start in late August, isn't it? Man, you just swelter. If you got a good team, you know, you're playing until late December, it is cold by the time you get done. Yeah, overtime, baby. Snow, you bet. Rain, we had one of those mud games. Man, that's a fun game. We had one time. You could kick the ball up, it'd hit the ground, just stick there, boom, like an arrow. Woo! Brother Bob preached 35 minutes this morning. I don't know what's wrong with him. My old back just can't take it no more. Sometimes, brethren, we got everything but the truth, don't we? If I like it, if I love the movie, I want a 4-hour movie, not a 30-minute special, right? I don't want the trailer, I want the whole thing. Attitude sometimes has a lot of effect on that. King Saul's attitude changed. We've got a point there about David and Bathsheba. That's another one just breaks your heart. You know, there's a lot in that story as well. He knew what God's will for him was. Tried to make a deal. Brother, you can plug these principles in. I chose those for a reason. There's several, about 6 more of them we didn't get to. When you read the Bible, now let's get this and then we'll be done. Find yourself in the story because you're there. You know, I used to have a lesson entitled Great Lessons from Esther. I now entitle it Haman the Horrible. And in all honesty, I relate a lot better to Haman than Esther sometimes. You know, worried about the wrong things, pouting, you know, acting like he acted. It's kind of like the Apostle Peter versus the Apostle Paul. Man, the Apostle Paul, he was just solid. You never find him wavering. But then you got the Apostle Peter. I kind of relate to him a little bit. Real good day, and then you sink in the water, right? Preach, you know, thou art the Christ, good day, and then I don't know who he is, and run off. But when you read that, when you see yourself, when you see your good traits being reinforced, then feed on that. You need those heroes to encourage you and build you up and embolden you. And when you see consistently those who have maybe other traits that we have that take over, falling and failing and losing their soul, then fix that. I used to do a lot of coaching. My kids are getting older now, but basketball especially. Left-handed layups. Kids don't know how to shoot them. And they would go up there, and I'd tell them, guys, I'd rather have you missed a shot 1,000 times and learn how to shoot it right than go off the wrong foot, use the wrong hand, and make the shot. Because when that post is 6'6", and you're 5'8", if you use the proper form, you can still make the shot. It cannot be blocked without getting fouled. That stuff you're doing is going to be a problem later. And they'd say, I can't. I said, stop. You can't yet. But there's a difference. I know sometimes we feel like, I can't, Michael, I'm trying. I've been fighting this all my life. You may fight it all your life, but you should get better at it. You can build spiritual muscle the same way you do physical muscle by the exercise of our spiritual strength. we gain more. Our time is up. There are no shortcuts. God's not making any deals. The deal is the gospel, and praise God for it. We act like somehow, well, you go to a car dealership. That new truck costs $75,000. I ain't paying that. I'll pay you $68,000. That may work at the Ford house. It's not going to work at our Father's house. The plan is perfect as delivered. We need to accept the deal and be thankful for the deal that God has given us. Thank you.